सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ कपिलाय नमस्तस्मै येनाविद्यो दधौ जगदिमग्ने कारुण्यात् साङ्ख्यमये नौरिव विहिता प्रतरणाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः We have completed 60th Karika. 60th Karika is a summary of the discussion started from 50, 55 and 56. There were two examples given. One of cow and its milk, and the second one of a dancer who withdraws from dancing from the performance after the performance is completed and the viewers are satisfied. So this is to demonstrate how Prakriti stops its functions for an individual who has realized or who has withdrawn from the enjoyment of the objects. So nana vidhair upayaihi upakarini anupakarinaha pumsa. So here Ishvara openly says, this Prakriti is very generous. It works for the benefit of others, Purushas. But the Purusha is not generous because it has no qualities, no actions. Therefore, in normal condition, where the relations or union comes, there must be some given taken conditions or relations. So here that is not there. From Purusha's side, there is no returns. But Prakriti works for it. So artham aparthakam charati. The objectless Purusha, Prakriti works with objects. So this is a contradiction in that relation, but it is from one side. So how it is that, so again one more poetic analogy which is given to indicate that, because the last analogy of dancer is not very fitting to the context. The disadvantage with that, the problem with that is, once the performer withdraws from performing, it doesn't mean he's always withdrawn. It can come again and performance can happen again. if the situation comes, such a situation comes. Therefore, here in Karika 61, he is giving another analogy which is more befitting to the contest, with more relevance, or you can say more logic is applied here. So here it is, once it withdraws, it will not come again for that Purusha. Once Prakriti is withdrawn from the performance or the activity of enjoyment and liberation, that is Purushartha, there is no chance that it can come again. So it will not come again. So that point is illustrated with this analogy. Prakrite sukumarataram na kinchidastedi me madirbhavati. या दृष्टास्मीति पुनर्न दर्शनमुपैति पुरुषस्य Here Ishvara Krishna says, "Me matihi," this is my opinion. So what is that? Prakritehe sukumarataram na kinchidasti iti me mati bhavati. Prakritehe, of Prakriti or than Prakriti. Sukumarataram. Sukumara means it is used, the word used for Sukumara. Sukumara is very beautiful, very delighting. But here it is used for a woman, or bashful woman with a noble descent. So more modest or more bashful, from a noble decency or something like that. So in our culture it was very famous. So that example is used here. So he says, if this Prakriti is like a noble woman, I say that Prakriti is more bashful. There is nothing bashful than Prakriti. So Sukumarataram. So the word Sukumara, the word comes from Kumara. Kumara, it means the root is Kamu. Kamu Kantau. Kamu, to desire. So Kamu Kantau, that is the root. So there some suffix is added as Aaron. It's a suffix pratyaya. And the Ka become Ku also. So the Kumara, it can be Kumara. Then Su is suffix, prefix added. So more beautiful. And then there is a Tarap, it's called comparison, degree of comparison. That is Tarap. So now Sukumara Tara means, the meaning what implied here is noble descent with what we say Lajja. So Lajja is bashfulness. So that is added there. So na kinchidasti. Therefore, why you are bringing this? Because it's also a poetic language. Now, Why we want to say that? So he says, Ya drishtasmiti punarna darshanam upaiti purushasya. So once that bashful woman, noble woman knows that I was exposed to a stranger, to another person than her husband. So in that case, she will not appear again in front of others. So this was very normal in olden times. In the houses we could see, when outsiders come, the women, they don't come to the meeting. They will be outside. They are called. They will stay inside, and whenever it is needed, they will come with a cover and all those was there. So it was a mode of modesty shown in those days. So nowadays it is not there, but those days it was there. So he is taking that into as an example. So that is one. And the other thing is, if they make a good meal, different dishes like that, and then when people enjoy the dishes they eat, they ask who made it, and it's very tasty, it's very good, who made it. So in that case, they say, this woman made it, or whatever the housewife made it, and all this. Then they used to call who is that they want to see, but they will not come out. That is the custom. So in that case, they will feel more bashful that people came to know. So this is also a feeling. So that feeling is conveyed here. So now this Prakriti is exposed. How? Because the consciousness came to know whatever is happening, the enjoyment or whatever is happening is because of Prakriti. So the taste we are enjoying is because of this particular lady. So that came to know. That is a discriminative knowledge. After that, once the Prakriti is identified or separately identified from consciousness, then it is separated. So because of that, the modesty, or we can say the sensitivity, or whatever, some sense is there, that with that she will not come again. So that is, now it is complete. So in no case expose herself again to the person or another person. So ya drishta asmi iti. So I have been seen, or I have been exposed. So ya drishta asmi iti punarna darshanam upaiti purushasya. Will not come to others' contact or not exposed to others. So once it is gone, it is gone. So this way, once the consciousness realize that stand of Prakriti, the character of Prakriti, then it is not forever. So it will not come with enjoyment or another body combination. It will not come. So there is no coming back, coming again. So this point is conveyed here, because now here we can ask the question. So once it is withdrawn, why it is not coming back? Why there is no birth again? What is the reason? So this is the reason it is said. Prakriti is so sensitive in that sense, because knowledge is very sensitive. Once you know the reality, then the unreal cannot reappear or reproduce. Because knowing reality is ultimate. And after knowing reality, the reality cannot be unreal, and unreal cannot become real. So this is the nature of knowledge. So knowledge gives this power. If not, that is not happening, it means you have not realized it. So here is also, once the Prakriti and Purusha is realized, here in the sense, realization is discrimination. So they are discriminated and they are separated by discriminative knowledge. So then there is no reunion or recombine, there is no rebirth. So therefore, once it is done, it is done. So yadrishtasmiti punarna darshanam upaiti purushasya. So therefore, what here the author is trying to convey is, before knowledge there are chances of birth and death. The migration will continue. You will take different types of body and birth. And until you realize, there is no guarantee that you can be free from sorrows and this samsara. Only after realizing, it is guaranteed that there will be no rebirth and the samsara. So this point is conveyed here. Now, after this examples and discussion of Prakriti, now again the main subject of discussion. Now 62 Karika, starting from here, all the Karika will discuss the realized state of individuality, and then how the individual become, or how the individual realize the Kaivalya, and who is having all these changes in the sense, the manifestations like bandhana or bondage and liberation, all this. Now from the last Karika, we came to know that Prakriti is doing all this and Prakriti is realizing itself. The realization is also with Prakriti, because she realized that I have been exposed, so then it withdraws. So that is what it said. Now that point is mentioned here. This is an important Karika statement that we are going to get. So to memorize it and should be deeply understood. This is the essence of our main part of Sankhya philosophy, which says there is no transmigration or realization or bondage for Purusha. It is not from the point of view of Purusha. All these are from the point of view of Prakriti. तस्माद् न बध्यते अद्धा न मुच्यते नापि संसरति पुरुषः संसरति बध्यते मुच्यते च नानाश्रया प्रकृतिः Tasmat na badhyade adha na muchyate napi samsarati purushaha. Therefore, all the reasons have been mentioned before. So he is quoting those. Tasmat, therefore. So now you know all the reasons. In fact, na badhyate, na muchyate, na vi samsarati purushaha. So the purusha, consciousness or the individual soul, certainly individual soul has no bondage, na badhyate, is not been it is not in bondage and is not being released. It is not released, na muchyate. So if there is no bondage, then there is no releasing. Therefore, napi samsarati, no transmigration indeed. So in between there is a adha. Adha to say certainty or indeed, verily, in fact, no, adha. So this can be added to each verb, like adha badhyade, adha muchyade, adha samsarati. So no, indeed no bondage, indeed no realization, or indeed no transmigration. So nothing is there. So here you can see there is this concept is completely with Vedanta. So what Vedanta says, the Chaitanya Atma has no bandhana, no bondage, no realization, no sadhana, nothing. Na mukti ityesha paramarthata. Na nirodho na chutpatti sadhakaha ityesha paramarthata. So here whatever it is happening, because of ignorance, what we say are superimposed actions and reactions. So in that level, all the functions are real, it seems to be real. But once you realize that the reality is actually laid on for the sake of all these vyavaharas, all these functions. And the experience of self-consciousness is this. There is no bondage and there is no realization, there is no sadhana. If there is no releasing, there is no, what need of sadhana? There is no need of sadhana, no need of sadhya, nothing is there. So this is what is happening. Now who is doing all this? Samsarati badhyade muchyade cha nana ashraya prakriti. So this prakriti, supported by many creations. So the created objects supported by other objects. Nana ashraya. So this prakriti is having the bondage, and the prakriti is released, and this prakriti is transmigrated. So there is no such thing. And all these are ascribed to Purusha. It is not really there, but when there is no discriminative knowledge, in that stage, all these functions are ascribed to Purusha. So that is what we say, Purusha is in Bandha, Mukta, and all these words we use. So it is not correct. Actually, Prakriti is having all this. So if Sankhya knows this fact, then whatever we discuss, starting from the first Karika to all this, can be ascribed to the stage of bondage, which is in ignorance. So what is happening in ignorance, that is called superimposed. So because that is not realized, real, whatever is happening. So if there is ignorance, then superimposition can happen, or illusion can happen, or the misunderstandings, and with those misunderstandings, whatever one does, all goes in vain. It's all farce. If one has misunderstanding, then how can we say whatever he or she does is correct? It goes as farce. So therefore, all these creation and manifestations only ascribed to Purusha, attributed to Purusha. In that sense. But from Prakriti, when you say Prakriti is doing everything, the Prakriti has all this manifestation. And when you separate the Prakriti, Purusha as the consciousness has nothing. So this is what is happening. So then what the realization be, that the next Karika, in the 64th Karika will say, how that realized soul will experience. So his experience will be, I had no union with Prakriti, and in future also I have no union. There is no chance that I can have union with Prakriti and its function. It was all because of this reflected consciousness. And I, unfortunately, with this ignorance, I identified myself with all these functions, all these body and bodily functions. So this will be his realization. So realization there and the realization here, both are the same in Vedanta and there. Vedanta also we have this discriminative knowledge. Only the difference is, Vedanta he realizes as Brahman, all-pervading one entity, the existence, consciousness and bliss. Here he separates Prakriti, then he realizes, I am only consciousness. So this is the technical difference we can say. But the experiential level, there is no difference. So that is what it is there. So when once the sadhaka came to this level of knowledge, then he can declare, nothing is in me. So whatever is happening is outside. When there is no virtue, there is no papa, there is no sin, there is no taking birth or death, nothing is there. So because in samsarati, in this transmigration, comes all the functions of physical and mental. It is all connected to Prakriti. So there are statements in Vyasa Bhashyam and in Sankhya Sutra. There is a corresponding sutra to this Karika. Naikantato bandhamokshau purushasya aviveka drite. Sankhya Karika 371. Certainly there is no bondage and liberation for Purusha apart from indiscriminative knowledge. So aviveka drite. Aviveka is indiscrimination. So if that is there, then it is there. Otherwise, no bandhana, no moksha, nothing. Similarly, evam bandhamokshau buddhaveva vartamano purusho vyavadishyete iti. This is a Vyasa Bhashya. I'm quoting from Vyasa Bhashya 218. Yoga Sutra 218 Vyasa Bhashya. It is very clear there. Evam bandhamokshau. Thus, bandha and moksha Buddhau Vartamano. It is there in the buddhi, in the intellect, or the manifestation of Prakriti. But it is ascribed to Purusha. Purushe Vipatishyate. That is what is happening. Actually, there is no. So now you see there is a connection with all this Vedanta and this Yoga Sutras and Vyasa Bhashya and Sankhya Sutra, Sankhya Karika. So in this level, we are talking about the on stage which is experienced as moksha. So there is no differences. All the differences are there in the sadhana or in the methodology of creation or the creation theory. There are so many differences because each philosophy thinks differently as they experimented or as they could understand. But in this level, at least Sankhya and Yoga Sutra and Vedanta, in this level, it is the same. So therefore, when we study new philosophies or what we say as other philosophies than Vedanta, we should be very careful. As I mentioned before, we should follow their own methodology correctly with connecting points. Then you will understand what they want to say. We have to apply our mind freely, openly to these philosophies and try to understand. There may be some problems, like we may be unable to understand some of the points logically, like that. But the main points we have to follow with the main points. What they are saying about the creation, what are the sadhanas mentioned, and what are the purusharthas, the benefits mentioned there, and the higher philosophy or what you say the ultimate truth. So what they are talking about, the ultimate truth. So these points should be followed. Then one can understand there is some interconnections. So there is some integration there. So this is what the 62 Karika. Now this point is little elaborated in 63 Karika. Rupai saptabhirev tu badhnādyātmānamatmana prakritihi. सैवच पुरुषार्थं प्रति विमोचयत्येकरूपेण Prakriti has 8 intellectual modifications that those we are already learned. Out of 8 modifications, Prakriti uses 7 modifications for binding, bandhana, and 1 for releasing. The first one, or knowledge, not first one, the knowledge one. The rupai saptabhirevatu badhnadi atmanamatmana prakriti. Now you see, Prakriti herself binds herself by the 7 modifications of Prakriti itself. So this is what is happening. The Prakriti binds herself by Prakriti's own modifications. and Prakriti releases herself by its own modifications. So, Atmanam Atmana Prakritihi Badhnati Saptavireva. By 7 forms, 7 modes. Saptabhi, the 7 we have: virtue, vice, dispassion, passion, power, weakness, and ignorance. No, expect the knowledge. Rupai Saptabhi. Eva, indeed, Badhnadi, binds. Atmanam Atmana. This is very interesting. Prakriti binds herself by herself. Because 7 modifications binds and 1 modification releases. So all these 8 functions combined in Prakriti only. There is no connection with the Purusha. Now how we are connecting Purusha here? Because by the reflection. So this in the 8 modification, the Chaitanya, the consciousness is reflected. So the consciousness seemingly in bondage and seemingly released. Actually, the bondage and releasing is happening in Prakriti only. Because Purusha is reflected there, therefore it is there. Now, whether in Prakriti or in Purusha, the actual experience is we are having the bondage, we are suffering, and we want to release ourselves. That is our problem. Now, why it is happening? So here it is said, it is in Prakriti all this is happening, and Purusha has nothing to do with that. This is the knowledge discrimination. But what we feel what our experience is, we are having the bondage, we are having all the problems. So this is the ignorance. This is before discrimination. If you start to discriminate the experiences, then you will find all the experiences are happening in this mind combinations. Mind, intellect, ego, body and all this. So nothing happening on me. So Badhnadi Atmanam Atmana Prakriti. Or here in this Atma, the word is used as Atma, we can bring intellect for the clarification. So therefore, intellect is having all this. As in Vyasa Bhashya, Buddhau eva vartamano, it is said. So similarly, you can bring intellect here, because intellect is the main manifestation of Prakriti. Saivacha Purushartham Prati Vimochayati Eka Rupena. Saivacha Prakriti. So that Prakriti herself or itself will do the releasing sadhanas, releases with one knowledge. Eka Rupena. Vimochayati Eka Rupena. When the knowledge arises, Prakriti is released because it is discriminated. The knowledge here is discrimination, the ultra discriminative knowledge. So therefore it is discriminated. So once it is discriminated, there is no bandhana at all. The Saivaja Purushartham Prati Vimochayati Eka Rupena. Eka Rupa is knowledge. So there is a sutra for this. Rupaihi saptabhiratmanam badhnadi pradhanam koshakaravat mojayatyeka rupena. Same, as the wording is also same. Sankhya Sutra 372. So the previous one was 371 and the next Sutra 372. the third chapter, 72 Sutra. Now comes the experience of the knower, the discriminative knowledge, the effect of discriminative knowledge. The who realized, the realized soul will experience these thoughts, what is said here. Evam tattvabhyasat nasti namenahamittya parishesham. अविपर्ययाद् विशुद्धं केवलमुत्पद्यते ज्ञानम् एवं तत्वाभ्यासात्. By this thought, what is aforethought, aforementioned? So evam. So evam means what is already mentioned. So aforementioned, with the aforementioned knowledge, tattvabhyasat. The tattvabhyasa. Now what is this tattvabhyasa? Tattva means truth, normally translated as truth. But here tattva means all the 25 tattvas. So all the third Karika, Prakriti, Mula Prakriti, Ravakriti. So all these 25 tattvas. So tattvabhyasat. This is a sadhana here, tattvabhyasa. Because we can see in Sankhya, the knowledge is the main sadhana, discriminative knowledge. So tattvabhyasa. Nasti name nahamiti aparishesham jnanam. So what he thinks, nothing belonging to me, neither belonging to me, nor attached to me, nor identical with me. So nasti, nothing is there which can attract me or which is belonging to me. The nasti. Name, I am not attached to it. I have no attachment. In this stage, he realizes nothing was attached or there was no action and reaction. So therefore he says nasti, name and naham. All those what I experienced is not me. It is not identical with me or it is not identified as me. I was wrongly identified. It was a big error. I was identifying with all these functions. So nasti name naham. So this is the experience of realized soul. Even in Vedanta is the same. So it means aparishesham jnanam. So here the final knowledge will come. The parishesha means if something is remaining, then it is called parishesha. It is where nothing remains, where the knowledge is complete. So this is the experience of final emancipation. So tasmat nasti name nahamiti aparishesham. The complete knowledge will come. And this knowledge is also acquiring in Prakriti only, in the purest form of sattva, intellect. There the knowledge appears. So aparishesham, final knowledge. And now he is adding some adjective to this knowledge. Aviparyayad vishuddham. Without error and doubt. Viparyaya, again there is confusion or doubt. So this knowledge, the final knowledge, is without error and doubt. So aviparyayat. Vishuddham, completely pure. When it is received, the object received, anything received as it is, then it is said Vishuddha. Normally when we say pure or the object is very pure, this thing is very pure, it means you don't find anything else there. What should be there? Only that is there. Nothing added there. So no extra agent is connected to that. Then it is called pure. Is something extra is there other than the object, other than the nature of the object, then it is not pure, unpure. So this is pure, this knowledge is pure. Why? Because this is the purest form of sattva. So this knowledge can be experienced in that level. Therefore it is vishuddham. Kevalam utpadyate jnanam. So this is called kevala jnana, absolute knowledge, or knowledge alone. Kevalam utpadyate jnanam. So therefore here salvation is experienced. Only one knowledge remains. Now you see, all other 7 intellectual functions or intellectual modifications are departed. They are separated, discarded. Now one remains. What? This kevala jnanam remains. So aviparyayad vishuddham kevala jnanam utpadyate. Why? Because it is said to be final. It is the final stage. Therefore this discriminative knowledge, the absolute discriminative knowledge, remains forever. Now Prakriti is not destroyed. Prakriti is understood. Of course, Purusha is also not changed, because Purusha cannot change. So there is no change in consciousness. Here the change can happen in Prakriti, but in this absolute state, since it is absolute, there is no further change. So we cannot imagine for another change. This is absolute change. So now why we need to change? Why we want to change? Change because we feel this is not absolute. This is not final. Therefore we always want change. And we have a very deep sense of carving for happiness. So that makes our mind curious to change always, because we think if we change this, we will get more happiness, more relaxation. So then we keep on changing until the absolute is experienced. The change will go on. The mind will also change, body will also change. There are natural changes, unavoidable changes, and there are changes made by our own mind. So our habits and all those things. So the mind-made changes can be destroyed, or we can say we can leave them off. But the actual change of modification of Prakriti cannot be set off. So it will continue. There is no setback or setting off. It will continue. So we can stop our own mind. How? Giving new suggestions, new thoughts, and ultimately it will reach a point where the change is not possible. The further change is not possible. That is called ultimate. That is called absolute. So this is the stage. For birth after birth, we were changing ourselves, practicing sadhanas. Then we reached the absolute stage in this level of getting this discriminative knowledge finally. So therefore, aviparyayad vishuddham kevalam utpadyade jnanam. It doesn't mean there is no Shravana, Manana and all these sadhanas are not there. After practicing all those sadhanas, we came to this level. Like in Vedanta, aparoksha jnana is ultimate, the ultimate knowledge, or the direct means for the liberation, moksha, realization. Similarly, here also, the ultimate discriminative knowledge we get by all the practices of sadhana. Yoga, pranayama, yama, niyama, and ashtanga yoga, or whatever we call them. Or the karmas, purifying karmas, upasanas, sravana, manana, nidhyasanas, all are there in different levels. So here the discussion goes from the 25th different forms of or tattvas, principles. Therefore, they discriminative of this 25, and then each principle is known directly. Then finally, the realization will come. This is the process here. But to know all these 25, we need to have other sadhanas. For to know 25, your mind should be concentrated, purified for the purpose. So you have to make yourself eligible for this discriminative knowledge. So in that context, we can add all the other sadhanas. Okay, we will see the next Karika. It's all now connected to this realization and after realization. Now, what would happen to Prakriti? Now, we will discuss what would happen to Prakriti. And Purusha is always free, now is free from all those. And what is happening with the karmas? And all this we will discuss. Because here, when Prakriti is separated, and all the functions of Prakriti is separated, there is no question where the karma works and why there is no rebirth again, and all those questions are not relevant. Why? Because once the Prakriti is separated, everything goes with Prakriti. The Prakriti has its own manifestations and it will keep everything there. So now Purusha is realized and is separated. So there is no rebirth after this. So that was mentioned in 61 Karika. Prakrite sugara karam na kinchidasti iti me mati. So this was mentioned already. Okay. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।